rock and roll welcome to frontman Chaz West. You may know him from the days of Jason Bonham Band, Foreigner, Lynch Mob, Tribe of Gypsies, now debuting a brand new hot band called Westbound. That's right. He's no stranger to the sunshine, coming to us from LA, Los Angeles. Chaz, welcome to the
How
show.
you doing, Guido?
I'm good. I'm fighting thunderstorms again.
Every that's what I heard. I know, right? And rolling thunder across the sky, as Brian Johnson sang, right?
Yeah, and you're dealing with a heat wave.
Yeah, we are. Just the start of it. I mean, but look, we're so spoiled here. I mean, it's been so beautiful and cool. And it's in the 90s. I was in Lake Havasu last weekend, and it was 120. And in the evening, we played in the evening outside, it cooled down to about 109. So, yeah, exactly. So I feel very fortunate. This is nothing. I'm like, yeah, okay. You got you got air conditioning, you got a pool, you're fine. Yeah.
Were you were playing outdoors?
Outdoors. Yeah, I did a little. It wasn't Westbound. It was with some friends.
Yeah.
Brent Woods, you might know too, plays with Sebastian Bach. And anyway,
yeah.
Did like a all-star thing, kind of cover thing. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, outdoors at 100, it was 109 degrees. Granted, it's dry, but it's still really hot. So
was it really dry, or like, are you? So now that's a good question. Like, when you're doing a show like that, how do you do a show in the heat like that?
You have to drink a shitload of water, right?
Yeah.
And then honestly, and we had two giant porta-coolers on either side that, exactly. Because if you don't have any air to breathe when you got to sing, it's like, so, but I've learned to adjust and to adapt, I should say, when you have to do that. So.
Whole new set of standards, I guess, when you're playing outdoors and you're dealing with the elements and
absolutely. Yeah.
So Chaz, I started the show here and I listed a whole bunch of rock and roll bands that you've helped leave behind some music legacy with. And I'm afraid to ask this because I want to say, you're going to say, well, I love them all. And, I love these guys. But when you look back on those as your musical journey, is there one that you'd say to us, yeah, man, that was my favorite because, and you could have multiple favorites, I guess, for different reasons, but is there one that stands out?
Well, obviously the Jason Bonham Band, because that was my first break. It was my first foray into the big game, as we call it, right? Yeah. And, and I got to experience a lot of my dreams and goals, So that really made a huge difference and impact on my life. And I'll always be grateful to Jason. He gave me my first break, I was an unknown guy struggling around in local bands and whatever. And I beat out 700 something singers. It's not like we were like best mates and, no, I mean, I met him once at a party, but that was, a year or so prior. And it just, my whole life changed within like a 2-week period, John, it was amazing.
Was that an audition?
That, of course, catapulted me to other things, other bands, like you mentioned, Lynch Mob, Foreigner, And George, that was amazing too, because I was a huge, Lynch Mob, and Docking fan. So that was cool. But at least I had already experienced a bit of the big game, as they call it. I'd played in front of 100,000 people already. I'd put out a couple of records. I'd already, so at least I wasn't just brand new. It wasn't my first rodeo. So yeah.
When you first started out, were you a little bit starry-eyed? Like when you first got your break and you're sitting there with Jason, and were you a little bit starry-eyed at the whole thing?
Well, with Jason, it was cool. We got on really well, and I was just loving the musical chemistry that we had in the feel, and just what a powerful drummer he was. His foot, I will never forget. I thought we were going to go through the stage. He was hitting so hard, right? Because we rehearsed this little studio in Hollywood. And the first one, and then we went to a bigger studio. But and he was like, I was like, oh my God! I was like, I thought we were going to go through the floor. And he's like, your voice, my God, is so powerful. So that was one we really related, and sense of humor, and we like to go out and tear it up a bit. So that wasn't too much. It was more later on when all of a sudden, well, Uncle Robert and Uncle Jimmy, that, and I realized, oh God, I got to be cool. I can't act like a fanboy, even though deep down inside I'm like, oh oh my God, I'm hanging with Jimmy Page, you know, which is the truth. I met him before I met Robert, you know, and it was that, and then meeting some of my other idols, you know, with him, you know, or, you know, with the band, whatever. And I knew I had to like be cool because you're one of basically, you know, his friends' bandmates. You're not just some fanboy. So you gotta, you know, you can't, they didn't have cell phones then. See, you can get away with now. If we had cell phones then, fucking right, I would have gotten pictures, you know, but you couldn't carry around a camera. Oh, right. Exactly.
Selfies, right? Yeah.
Right. Exactly. You know, what are you going to do? You couldn't carry around a camera. And, you know, and then as soon as you ask for an autograph, you go down to like, because I made that mistake once. And I was like, I saw the difference in the attitude. And I was like, okay. Because originally they were like, oh, you're a peer. You're playing with, you know, friend's son, you know, a deceased legend's son. So, you know, and I saw the difference. I was like, live and learn. So
let's talk about that for a second, because maybe not everybody knows Jason Bonham, son of the late Led Zeppelin drummer John Bonham.
Right.
You know, and you're mentioning all the names, and there you are. You're in a band with him, and you got all the players around you. Right. Did you have any added pressure? Like, was there ever any added pressure to live up to Zeppelin in any kind of way? Like, because you had that around you?
Well, yes. I mean, because we did do Zeppelin songs, especially in the beginning. So it was a little bit of, but for me, I knew I could do it. You know, I'd been doing it. I didn't have a Zeppelin tribute band, but I did have a cover thing on the side. And I said, you know, even with my other original thing that I had before, the Jason Bonham Band. And I used to sing a lot of Zeppelin. So I knew I could do it. And in fact, the CD I had to send, you know, as an audition, you know, to got me the audition, excuse me, had to have one Zeppelin song on it because they, you know, the manager said, no, we want to have somebody who can do some Zeppelin too. We also want to hear original stuff, and we want, you know, a little bit. He told me the main reason he chose me, and they narrowed it down to like 10 guys, was he goes, I heard, you know, Robert, but I also heard Chris Cornell, and he was a huge Chris Cornell fan, as was I. So to me, that was a great compliment, you know. And so that was about the only, it was really just so much fun. I was loving it. You know, I mean, are you kidding? I'm playing after playing theaters, you know, clubs and the theaters. And then we're playing in South America, and there's 100,000 people. And we start with Immigrant Song. And I remember taking the mic stand going like this, and, you know, and there's 100,000 fists. And, you know, I felt like a gladiator, you know. So I really didn't feel that pressure until I heard Robert's there. Oh, Robert's here. He's, you know, that. Then I was like, deep down inside, but I was like, come on, you know, you can do it. You've been doing this. Was it my first gig? You know, so yeah, it was all I felt was more excitement. So
when you do that, and you've mentioned a couple of times, you said, look you know, grinding in the clubs and you know, paying the dues, and then you have that memory, and then, you know, you're standing in front of that crowd and you're lifting the mic and you got, you know, 1,000 people in front of you. What happens? What goes through your mind at that moment? Like when you're doing that and you look out there?
Oh, that 100, I'll never forget. That was the first song. We started with Immigrant Song. And I just, in my head, I do remember thinking, this is what I went through all that shit for so many years, struggled, the ups and the downs, paying your dues, like you said, you know, you know, musical, different bands, different day jobs, sometimes, whatever you had to do. And I was like, this is the epitome of it. I mean, I thought it was enough when we sold out the House of Blues. We did a whole House of Blues tour, you know, and then you go from that to like an arena. And that was like, oh my God. And then it's like 100,000 people at a football stadium in Brazil. You know, that was just, So I remember thinking that, and I was like a kid in a toy store, you know, candy store, right? You know, it was just like, it was the greatest high in the world that I couldn't come down from for probably a couple of days. But of course, I had another gig the next night. So it just, you know, because we did a whole South American tour. So, you know, it was a great feeling of accomplishment and satisfaction. You know? So
you've mentioned, and we've talked Zeppelin a little bit, and Zeppelin brand recognition, Jason Bonham brand recognition. When you come to a band that has that band recognition and a name that fans already know, I'll even mention, like, you know, Foreigner, you know, what's it like to walk into this situations for yourself? Like, do you have to be someone other than who you were already every day? or do you try to fit that band, or do you just go, look, I'm Chaz, and this is what I'm going to give you. Foreigner, this is what I'm going to give you. Jason, this is what I'm going to give you. This is who I am.
Right.
Or do you try to fit something else?
Well, with the Foreigner situation, Jason was playing drums, and it was our manager that was managing Foreigner. He still does. He still managed Mick Jones. And so he rang me, and I kind of knew, I already felt comfortable enough. I'd already done Lynch Mob. I'd done a lot of touring, done a bunch of records. And I knew, okay, vocally, I can make this work. I knew it. I mean, I'm not a carbon copy of Lou Gramm by any means, but I knew I could tonally, especially vocal tone and range. I knew I could do it. And I think my, former manager, he believed in me also, and he knew I could do it. So I felt comfortable, and it was Mick Jones was so cool and so nice, down there and relaxed. When I walked in at rehearsal the first time, but he did say, okay, so what do you want to do? And I said, how about Dirty White Boy? And he went, okay. And that was I think that was the first song I sang, with them. And I knew, and as far as, showmanship, his performance on the gig, yeah. I mean, Lou was a phenomenal vocalist. He could sing the phone book, when they existed, right? But, he wasn't like the crazy showman. He wasn't David Lee Roth or something, or right. Stephen Thomas, so I knew I didn't, it wasn't like I had to adhere to try to do some of his moves or whatever, because there really wasn't hardly any. But I just basically just put it into myself. I was more concerned about, vocally, making sure I hit the notes, making sure I had the range. I mean, the vocal tone, with a little bit of edge, Yeah. And then some of the natural showmanship that's just me over the years came out. So there you go.
So it's funny, and you talk showmanship and just the different types of venues and the different bands, right, and the different situations that you're in, Chaz. I've never been on one of these, and I've always wanted to go. You did a Monsters of Rock cruise, right?
Oh, I did a few of them.
You done a few of them. So
I did a few.
I'm trying to picture. There's a whole bunch of great rock and roll bands on a boat out in the ocean.
Right.
And there's two views of this, right? You got all these great, rock and roll personalities.
Right.
What's that like? Just being surrounded by all those guys, and you guys are going out and doing your thing as the show. But then you're looking at it, and you got the fans on the boat. You can't go in, and all the fans are there. What's that for everybody?
Oh, I loved it. It's like one giant party, and everybody's unified, including all the bands. And most of them, at least one or two of the guys from the band, yeah. or you've at least met them, throughout the years, on the long and winding road, as they say, something like that. It's really great, and everybody's ego is completely gone. Completely. At least that was my experience, including, one of the ones I did, it wasn't the Monsters, it was the Moody Blues Cruise. I did few of, it was Roger Daltrey. Yeah. He was one of my heroes. He was I was the first rock singer I saw live when I was a kid. And he was so cool and down to earth and just no ego at all, but with a great sense of humor, and so that was a huge thrill for me. Yeah. So yeah, I loved it. It was great. I remember him. He wasn't crazy about being on a boat. He's like, on a boat. They picked him up. Where were we? We were already in the Bahamas, and they picked, because he didn't want to go from the dock. We left him from Florida. They helicoptered him. He was in the Bahamas. They helicoptered him to the boat, and he was like, "I'm doing this for a couple of days, and that's it. Then I'm done. I'm not comfortable being on a boat." He goes, I was so rattled, I forgot, all my blues harps. Do you happen to have a G sharp or whatever, D sharp? I remember. And I go, I just might, Roger, let me look, that was kind of that. But no, it was great. I loved it. Want to do it again. And I look forward to doing it again.
And did the fans mingle with you guys or was
absolutely. That's what's so cool. There's no separation. It's like you're hanging right with them, and you have to go take the courses as far as if God forbid the ship all of a sudden is sinking, and to get in the lifeboats and all that. You're doing this all together with with the fans, with the life preservers on, and then the whole So it really brings you all as one. Unified. I don't care what part of the country or the world you're from and what your political aspiration is, whatever, views are, or whatever, how much money you make, it doesn't matter. And that's what's so cool. Everybody's just there to enjoy themselves, enjoy the music that they love and they grew up with, and have a good time, and spread that.
I gotta get to one of those, Chaz.
You should definitely. You would love it.
Yeah, I think I may not want to leave the boat. So we talked a little bit about, hey, you did all this stuff with all these different bands, and you're mingling with everybody, but it didn't start there. You started at a different spot, grinding a few things out. I understand at one point you work at the Troubadour.
I did. That was my first job in Los Angeles.
West Hollywood, California Troubadour.
That's correct. I'll tell you what happened is that
what were you doing?
We were doing a tour in the East Coast and Midwest, and a guy saw me, and the band was we were having some issues, and I was kind of ready to move on anyway, but they were older than me, and I was just kind of like, I don't know what to do yet. I was a kid. I was an underage kid. So this guy came to me, and he saw me, and he goes, hey, I got a band in LA, and we're close. We're, working with a couple labels, Warner Brothers. Actually, we're working with Warner Brothers, but they think the vocals are weak. They think that, they want a front man that's a really good showman also on top of vocal ability. He goes, and I think you got it. And would you be interested in ever coming to, making a move to Los Angeles? I go, hell yeah. I'm like, when do we leave? Right? Where's my sign? So anyway, to make a long story short, I came out, and the whole thing kind of fell apart within less than a week. It was kind of a Van Halen situation. It was two brothers. They were all quite a bit older than me, and they'd had the band for a while. It was a bassist, guitarist. Guitarist was a singer, and they were like, all the labels told this manager the same thing. And then even Warner Brothers, they loved the music, and they loved some of the songs, but they thought the vocals were weak. But they gave him like a development deal. And they said, oh, this kid's not coming and taking over our band, being the focal point, that kind of deal, right? I didn't know this, I'm waiting in the other room after I sang a little bit, right? And then basically he comes out and tells me, hey, I'm sorry. Just so you know, I'm dropping this band because this is every label. It's a waste of my time. He goes, I'm sorry. You came all the way out here and everything. He goes, what do you want to do? And I go, well, I would love to stay here, but I don't know a single soul, which is the truth. I didn't know a single bloody soul. I'm like, he goes, all right, you know what? My girlfriend's gone for the weekend. Why don't you, let's go out tonight. And I can introduce some people, and maybe, you can get something going. And I went, okay. So we went out, and the last place we went to was the Troubadour nightclub. And he introduced me to the manager, and the manager, because they were tight friends, and he already knew what had happened. And he said, man, I'm sorry about that. it didn't work out. He goes, but, he mentioned Greg mentioned you'd like to maybe stay here. And I said, I'd love to, but I don't know anybody. What do I do? And he goes, oh, would you want to work here? And I go, what do I do? Once again, well, what do I do? You want me to help behind the bar? And he goes, yeah, a little of that, but also we have doormen, and we like them, look good, and, but they know they can take care of things if it came down to it. But the main thing is you'll meet other musicians. And I was like, great. Okay. And he goes, you're not going to, get rich. Obviously, he'll make a living and we'll feed you, and you'll meet other musicians. That was the main thing. Right. And I said, great. Where do I stay? Because Peter, the guy I was staying with, his girl was coming back. He was like, you can't stay. You can stay here for the weekend. Okay. So where do I stay? He's like, well, I got a couch. You can crash on my couch, and then my girlfriend comes over like Tuesdays and Thursdays on my night off. So you can come over. And I mean, when she comes over, you come down here and, have a couple of free beers and a burger, and he goes, oh, and she's got some hot girlfriends too. You might want to meet. So, so that is, that's
that was it. Really, that's how you started the Troubadour. Now, so when you look back, was that an important fork in the road for you, the Troubadour?
Well, absolutely, because had that opportunity not come about, I probably would have wanted one way or another to come back out here, but it probably wouldn't have happened at that time. I probably would have had to go home for a bit or wherever. And, and it was a weird time. My family were moving, and it was just like, oh my God, so I was like, and I loved it here. I mean, just a few days, I loved it. And I was like, the energy and, just the artistic energy and, the vibe. I was like, this is where I belong. But not knowing anyone except for this manager, right? So
Would you tell young you now, like if you could go back and give that younger Chaz an advice,
right.
would you say, do it, man, work at the Troubadour, like,
Absolutely, because
yeah,
you have to. If you got. It's like gambling. You got to roll the dice. You got to take the risk if you're willing. If you want to try to reach that pedestal, and grab the brass ring, as they say, right? Absolutely. The mistakes I made were more later on, staying with, and the part of that is because I was by myself. I didn't have family out here. I didn't even have a serious girlfriend for a long time. So was staying with maybe some bands or music that I should have realized, this is never going to go any further, not to the point where I want to go. And I did it because of friendship and feeling like brothers. I was a kid, and one of the guys was like an older brother to me, that I never had, and it kind of took me under his wing. And I think, and I knew in the back of my head, well, but you just like, no, but it's okay, we're together. And then I realized, I'm hearing the same thing over and over. And I wasn't in charge of the business yet. I was a kid. So, but, I found out later they were saying the same thing, and then they start pulling me aside, or, guys from labels and saying, hey, man, you're so much better than these guys. You should be doing is that kind of thing. So in retrospect, yes, that was one of my main mistakes. I probably could have had a break much sooner had I not been as loyal as I was.
Chaz
as
is loyal.
friend.
Chaz is loyal. Look, you have a phenomenal history working with so many great musicians and bands and venues. We could just do a show just on that, Chaz stories from those days and those moments. But
right.
a minute seems like a lifetime, and
Agreed.
And you've moved the hands of the clock, and you find yourself westbound, and
Right.
westbound is you on vocals. I hope I get this right. Dave Chili, Moreno on drums, Jimmy Burkard on guitar.
We Burkard, correct.
Jason JC Cornwell on bass, and T-Bone Anderson on keyboards and guitar.
That is correct.
I got them all. So
well done, Guido.
Thank you. Yes. Names, with a name like Guido, you figure I should be able to get all these names right all the time. But is this group of guys bound together by Chaz West? Like what brings you guys together and makes this all gel, Chaz, the new band?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously it was my thing at first with Roy Z, and then I brought in Chili because he's been my bro for over 25 years. We were kids in local bands. There again, I lived at his house, for a while, so it was family. And I always, I was like, I finally had my own thing where I have the opportunity for my own vehicle. And I wanted what I call pros and bros. Okay.
Right.
Pros, they gotta be pros. They gotta be, musically, the caliber and musicianship that I expect and I want. But I also want bros. I wanted a family unit that, stick together through the ups and the downs, and I know a lot of musicians. I've played with a lot of people, all over. And, and I understand I wanted more than just a project. And I want some guys who are in 10 other bands and they're like, oh, I don't know if I have time for this. Because I went through that before, even with Resurrection Kings, which is how I got the Frontiers deal. And, because it's Vinny Appice, he's busy, Craig Gold had Dio Disciples. So, and I was like, this is my vehicle. And, I want to make it our vehicle, but it's mine right now. I don't want to go through that again. So there you go.
No, it totally, I get it. It totally makes sense. Right. You're talking about the guys and the side projects, and you want something dedicated, something that has longevity. You want to build trust with the fans and say, look, I'm not just giving you a single. I'm going to give you an album. I'm going to give you a story. We're going to have a relationship is what you're saying.
Right.
Your sound has been,
and on the times on the road where sometimes there are, not as far as performance, but some things don't, one of those nights, sound issues, problem with a promoter, something. We've all been through, believe me, any touring musician has gone through this. And, you want guys that are going to be behind you and got your back,
Yeah, every touring musician has a band member called Murphy's Law, where those things are always going to happen, right?
But right,
right, there you go. Look, your sound has been compared to bands like, and I get it, Led Zeppelin, White Snake, Aerosmith. you put new bands together, we all get compared to something that somebody else has always heard, right? But
Right.
what defines Westbound? What makes the band something fans will listen to and think, hey, that's Westbound? Like, I know we're in album one, but what's
Right.
going to be that sound? What are we looking for as fans?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for comparing us to such amazingly iconic bands as those band. And I guess other, reviewers have said that too. And that's a great compliment because all those influence, it's kind of like you put it all together along with other bands and other artists. And that's what becomes you. You put your own soul and heart and soul into it. As far as music, I would say because we're all on the same page as far as hard rock that is blues based. Okay. I mean, and it's the truth. I mean, that's where the greatest hard rock came from. And all those three bands you mentioned, that's where they got it from. So I'd say it's not like, well, this guy wants to be more, like this. No, it's like we're all on the same page for this band. You can have different influence. And I love being eclectic and taking a little, wow, okay, let me hear that. Maybe I can, that's the greatest part of art, songwriting, but you still have to be, we're all on the same page. Like we all want this, we're all, like have the same musical feel and the musical chemistry between us. Is anything completely original these days? I don't think so. I mean, yeah, okay, there's using a lot of new effects and things like that, right? And God forbid, now we got AI. But but you take the best from all your influences, and I always compare it to, like, you put it all in a blender, yeah, mix it all up, and you pour it out, and then drink it down, and that's what is you.
Yeah, I mean, like, as I was listening, before the show, I would take some time and I always listen to the songs and stuff. And
Right.
I mean, your vocals are just
Well,
wild.
thank you.
No, wild. Like it's just so powerful, Chaz. Like it was like, oh, right on, right? And so I guess I identified that for myself.
Right.
But here's the thing: every fan might hear something different, and we're all gonna get to recognize that Westbound sound after, and you're gonna go, oh yeah, I hear that guitar style, I hear that voice,
exactly,
right? And that'll become you guys too.
Vocally, yeah, I do. As just myself, I do take a lot of influences from all those singers you mentioned, from those bands and others. Ronnie James Dio was a mentor of mine. I met him in South America. He told me, I heard you backstage, and I was like, who is that kid singing with Bonzo's kid? We were friends till the day he left this earth. And I had we hung out. I live in Encino now, like a mile from where he used to live. Yeah. So that's a great compliment because that is my instrument. I play a little guitar. Great instrument. Exactly. And so to me, it was always important to have that power, have that range, have a bit of an edge, that bluesy edge. I don't like to be completely clean. I like to be able to, and be a little raspy, a little edgier here and there, and then maybe clean it up a little bit here and there. And that comes from years of doing it.
Yeah, I always admire like your style of voice and your power vocals. Doing it night in and night out, and the recovery for your vocals, but not even just the recovery, but knowing how to take care of your voice so that you can do that. Right. Yeah. Because look, if you're in show one on Wednesday and you got another show on Thursday, the fans on Thursday want to hear the Chaz West that they heard on Wednesday.
Right? Sorry. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think that's where I get in awe with your style of voice and the power that you have, that you continue to do it. And it's like, wow, man, like it's, there's the guys who train the weights in the gym and they do all the right. And you just do it differently with your voice.
Guido, you hit the nail on the head. It's just like being, I always say singers and drummers, it's like being an athlete because this is your body, right? You're not just plug it in, and pretty much if you have, the same settings and everything else and everything, you'll probably sound the same, even if you feel like shit, even if you're ill. Chances are, you vote, as far as your instrument goes, you'll sound the same. But being a vocalist or being a drummer is very physical. It's being an athlete, and you have to learn. And which I learned the ropes from touring for years. What works for me, what sometimes what works for me doesn't work for all vocalists. And like some guys go, oh, it's back in the early days, I said, oh, try this, and I did, and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't quite work for me. Oh, but this does, and I'd done up to 14 nights in a row, and I always like, it was inside of me, I'm gonna make sure I hit every note. I'm not dropping any notes, because if not, it's kind of like a punch myself in the head,
Yeah.
It's a challenge that I set up for myself. And like even a couple of years ago, Paul Rogers turned me on to throat coat. It's like a tea, But he's like,
I've heard of this. Yes,
phenomenal.
Yeah,
Tell me that and a shot of tequila, and you're great.
Tequila. Okay, we've moved on to tequila.
No limes. Limes constrict the vocal cords.
Oh, seriously?
Yep. Use lemon. See, these are the things that I've learned throughout years of touring. Yeah.
You're gonna have to write a book. You're gonna have to write a book with all these tips, Chaz.
I will. I know. I was thinking maybe I'll start a podcast to help singers. I don't know.
You should.
Right?
You know what? So here's the thing. I'm gonna be
the road. Right.
Here's a moment of honesty, because people are like, oh man, you're interviewing Chaz West and you're pumping his tires. You're fanning out on him because you admire his voice and all that. But here's the thing: if I'm not a fan, like I'm doing the show, but if I'm not a fan, this is why I love doing it, because I am a fan of the music and I am a fan of the personality and stuff. So you guys can stop if you don't like it.
I started as a fan too. I get it, Guido.
And
you never forget that little kid inside of you that was just a fan.
Yeah. You gotta keep that. Gotta keep that, Chaz.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So look, you've got an album, Westbound Volume 1. It's got 11 tracks. It was released in 2019. I think you got it on the Frontiers label. And we know what happened. The pandemic derailed everything. A lot of entertainment for a few years kind of, sat by the wayside. But you started up playing the album live again, I think in 2021? Was that
2022, really? Yeah, it was 2020.
It was 22?
Yeah. 2021 is pretty much still closed. So, yeah.
So 2022, you ramp things back up. What is Volume 1 all about? Like, what's the story on Volume 1 Westbound?
Well, that's when I was on Frontiers, and the president of Frontiers, Serafino, offered me the deal. That was because of Resurrection Kings, as I mentioned, that previous band with Vinny and Craig Goldie, and then of course other bands. He knew my resume, and I wanted to get across a spiritual message, a positive message, because I was really seeing, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I was hearing a lot of really dark, negative lyrical content, and kids, they're very easily influenced and swayed. And I wanted to make sure, now that I have the opportunity to really put across what I want, that it was a positive message. Not religious. I'm very anti-religion. I'm talking spiritual, and just love and acceptance and understanding, and all be as one, unity, being unified. And I saw divisiveness, and I wanted to point that out. So it's recognizing some of the things that, are negative, that are toxic, but that maybe we can correct and change, as human beings. So that was really important to me. And then also, of course, personal experiences, that I've gone through in life, both in my career and my personal life, and relationships, both business and personal. So it was a lot of different things. And then even like once on Traveler, I went back to like when I was a kid. And what were you when I used to lay on the floor with headphones on and listening to my favorite records, my band or whatever, and CDs, and it's just like dreaming about what my dreams and goals were, dreaming about and picturing myself on a massive stage and touring and that kind of thing. So, all of that being part of as a writer, as a lyricist, I let it all come out, so.
Positive vibes, togetherness, hope. How much did Roy Z Roy Z produced and co-wrote that Westbound Volume 1 record with you?
He co-wrote, what was it, eight out of 10 songs? There's 2 songs I wrote with my friend, bandmate Brian Tishy. So,
Oh, right. I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
Phenomenal musician, phenomenal drummer, phenomenal musician, and we're really good friends. And he's so talented. So I wrote 2 songs, recorded 2 with him. Everything else I wrote with Roy Z. And Dave Chili Moreno co-wrote Dance of Life with us too. I mean, he was in on that. It was just
that's a great song. Great video on your website too. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate
that.
Yeah,
it is westboundofficial.com. You've got a set of videos. We want folks to be able to go there and listen to that.
Yes. And of course, Don't Stand in My Sunshine, the new single, is available on all platforms. I know you were just going to get to that.
Guido. I know. I'm excited about it. It's a great song.
Sorry.
No, you're excited too because it's a great song. It really is a good song. And you're gonna wait. So we could ask that now. You're giving, and I'll go back to my other question about Roy Z, but the new one, you're gonna have a video out for the new song soon too, right?
Yes, we will. We just filmed it in Nashville. You know, my new label's based out of Nashville, and that was really cool because this song has a real bluesy element to it. You know, I'm even playing blues harps, and I thought this is the perfect setting for this song. You know, it wasn't planned, and we were going to do it there, but just happy that I signed with this new label, and they're based there, and they said, "Let's do it here." And I was great, you know, and we were on like a estate with, 8 acres, and there was a waterfall and a barn and a lake, a mini lake, and that was really cool.
Yeah. Now that you say Nashville and having listened to the song, it makes perfect sense. Let me ask this before we get to that. Your relationship with Roy Z, who did produce and co-write, and the others, how important was the relationship to what you just talked about in volume 1, in that record, in that album? It seems like you guys are close and you have some integration. Was that important to get what you got out of volume 1?
Absolutely. And of course, I mean, I had complete confidence that because we'd written together with Tribe of Gypsies, we did one, Dweller on the Threshold back, and we toured in Japan. That was 2006, 2007. I knew, once I got offered the deal and they said, "We want you to have a producer, co-writer. Do you have somebody in mind?" And I mentioned Roy Z, and they were all for it. And he was into it. I knew it was going to be fine. I knew once we got together, because the chemistry and the vibe and it was all going to gel, right? And we did. I mean, the first day we got together, we pretty much wrote the basis of Dance of Life. One of the singles came that quickly. We real quick. Like, he had the chord structures, I had a melody idea. And then we went, Dave's studio. We're like, "Hey, Dave, you're around. Hey, we're coming over with this idea, and just the 3 of us like jammed on it. And I wrote some scratch lyrics and a couple of things that were keepers. And of course the rest, is on the record. But yeah, I knew that definitely mattered because we knew each other as people, as friends. We met. I don't know if you know how we met. We met in South America back in 97 when I was with Jason Bonham Band. He was playing with Bruce Dickinson. We were on the same festival stages. And we were the young kids, So we were the ones that after the shows, these guys have been doing this for decades. They just want to go back to a hotel. We want to go party. We want to go out, right? The bars and the clubs, and then they'd have some like local bands, original or cover, playing. And we were the guys that would jump up and jam with them, So that's how we really got to know each other. And of course, the fact that he lived in Los Angeles area helped a lot. And so he contacted me about Tribe of Gypsies when he wanted to take that to a new level. And I thought right away, when I had this opportunity, Z. There you go.
That's awesome. Yeah, and because of that, and that's what I was asking. I knew you guys had a long history. I didn't quite know how it started or whatever, but you had that long relationship. And I thought, you know what? Did that advance the process? Did it make it what it was? Am I hearing that when I listen to the album? Is that what I'm hearing as parts of those relationships unfolding and the trust and the support of each other? Chaz, your song, Never Surrender, and you talked about this a few moments ago in terms of divisiveness. It's the lead off song on your Volume 1 album.
Right.
And you talk about how it's, meant to unify people, to get away from divisiveness and not to surrender to it.
Correct.
How do you think we got to this divisiveness that we were in? And are we healing, Chaz, in terms of what you see?
Well, I mean, the song also has basically it's conquering obstacles and adversity also, which I experienced in my own life. You know, even as a young struggling artist, you know, if you're a dreamer, that kind of thing, right? And believing in yourself, never surrender. It. So it's a yes. There, all of that is implied. All of that's in there. Divisiveness, God, you know, it has a lot to do. Well, you know, I don't like to be political. I don't want to talk politics, but unfortunately, that has something to do with it. And that's when I started seeing things, at least in this country, how things got really bad. And the media promotes that, which I think they promote the divisiveness. I mean, I'm not blaming it all on them, but they promote like making it like there's two sides. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. At least in this country, democracy was supposed to be you can agree to disagree. And it's been like that for hundreds of years, right?
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be. You don't have to all, that's not the way this country was founded. Not all agree, but you come to a common ground and, you know, we can agree to disagree, but we make this, you know, this divisiveness as far as, well, if you don't agree with me, you know, as far as politics and religion, that'll start more wars or anything, right? That, you know, if you don't agree with me, then you're wrong and you're evil. And no, that's not right.
Are we healing? Are we on the path to healing?
I pray, I hope and pray. You know, I see aspects of yes, we are, and I'm also concerned too. You know, social media, you know, has not made it better either, and that some of that things are taken out of context, and you know, and things that aren't even real, like AI. Now they're saying, you know, you don't even know what's going to be real anymore. I mean, the whole AI thing to me is basically amazing, and it's also terrifying. Okay, and I mean that sincerely. It's like, I mean, we're going to be living like the Terminator series. You know, I mean, the movies. Honestly, you know, I mean, in our lifetime, I wasn't sure.
You know what I think is funny with the AI is my younger kids, they don't like it. They actually are saying to me, we don't want this in our lives. Like we're afraid of AI. We don't want it to take over. We just want to be with humans. We don't want
good.
And I'm more accepting. I'm the one that's going, yeah, but you know, it has a use and let's be and they're like, no, dad, right? So I'm like, it's just kind of interesting though, like that what's coming up, right?
I mean, like as far as music goes, there's enough artists faking it already. We know all about that. This is going to make it even worse for some, you know. I mean, now what? You don't have to do anything now. What? You just
don't have to do anything.
I'm glad to hear that a younger demographic is recognizing that.
Yeah.
And no, we don't want that. See, that gives me hope for the future, at least of music. Okay.
They want, Chaz, they want authenticity, Chaz. And here's this, like I've watched some videos of you guys playing, of Westbound playing, and there's fans in the crowd and they're cheering. And I look out at that and I look at your, you know, the fans that are cheering you on and I go, look at all those people. They all get along. They're all being bound together by Westbound, right? Like they're being bound together by you, brought together by music.
Right. Guido, I've always said music is a universal language. And if there's one thing that maybe can save this world, it will be music, honestly. Because one thing, I mean, have you ever met anybody who said, I hate all kinds of music? I don't care what's, you know, no, you'll never meet someone who hates all kinds of music, you know. And I have friends that, you know, and I'm not, you know, that I know politically differed from my opinions, but we don't talk about that because that's not what we're there for, right?
Right.
It's music. It's to celebrate, you know, life and you know, music and passion and you know, and we and then it's funny because I see everybody come together as one when no politics involved.
Now, if we could all leave the music venue, if we could all leave the Westbound concert,
right,
feeling together and taking that outside of the Westbound concert, we would be perfect, Chaz. Like, so that's the goal here.
Live in peace and harmony.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me ask you about another one of your songs, Dance of Life. I saw some really reflective moments when you talk about that song and when you talk about friends and people and family. You mentioned your grandma.
No,
And
I saw it. No, I never mentioned my grandmother because she passed a long time ago.
you
I
did, and that's what you mentioned about her. You mentioned
really,
about that, and you talked about loss of life and
oh, you
being
meant
able to move on.
interview maybe.
Yeah, right. Yes, your interview.
I meant the actual lyrics of the song.
Oh, no, 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 not at all. No,
Oh,
you were.
it was about
Yeah,
my mother. Yeah, my
yeah.
mother a couple of years right before that record came out. So yes.
So I
And
was gonna ask you, like when I look at that, when I see what you talk about in Dance of Life and how you reflected on it, is Chaz a romantic philosopher of life? Was my question, right?
I consider that a great compliment, I guess that's a good way to put it. Yes. That's one side of me that most people don't get to see. You're right. That's not most people see on stage, that guy, unless, of course, doing a ballad or something like that, maybe, and especially the female crowd picks up on that.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
right, but yes, but I love, the beauty and the bombast. The bombast, I love bombast. You got to have some
Yeah,
beauty too,
yeah.
and yeah, I mean, we strive to be in my lyrical contents. I strive to be a poet and get across something that's important to me, a message, whether it be spiritual, whatever, something, or, and I'm not talking about preaching necessarily. I'm just talking about my experiences and my philosophy, as you said, on different aspects of life in different situations. So yeah, and thank you again for saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. I wanted people to know, sometimes we look at the front man of a band
Right.
and see all that it is, like
Right.
in what you bring and your presence. And in that video, and it's on your website, it's on westboundofficial.com. You get to see that other side of Chaz and you're
Absolutely.
philosophizing and you're talking, and it was like there's the other side of him. And I think people should go there and look at that, and they're gonna enjoy that too. Let's talk about your new.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Let's talk about your new single, "Don't Stand in My Sunshine."
All right.
Uh, it's got, and you talked about the blues element. It's got all the elements of a gritty, bluesy,
Right.
harmonic storytelling, roll down the windows down, vocal presence, rock and roll song. Um, as I'm listening to it and enjoying all that, I gotta ask this: the title, "Don't Stand in My Sunshine." Was someone standing in your sunshine?
Well, yeah, I'm not one individual, but it has to do with toxic people, toxic
Yeah.
situations, and don't let them interfere with your life as far as, living your dream, living your life, being happy, which unfortunately a lot of us make that mistake. And you have to learn to cut that off, separate yourself from that. And so that's what and that's just so it's an analogy for that. Yes, don't stand in my sunshine, whether it be one person, yes, or a group of people, or a job, or
Oh,
whatever. There
yeah.
you go.
No, there was some
Life,
good words. Like I picked up, there was some
enjoy
some
life.
lyrics that I had there. There was like, oh, plastic face distorting my view.
Right.
Please look away. And I was like, oh yeah. Anyways, great
Two-faced
tune.
people. Unfortunately, you meet quite a few of those in this industry, and
There.
I know
Oh,
how
yeah.
as them right now. So two-faced
Yeah.
people. So
And in the music industry.
plastic people. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
absolutely right. And I think even in life sometimes, but what
Yeah.
I've encountered in the music industry, it may, for the most part, it's been really positive. But I also saw some of the negative, and like those toxic people, and that try to drain you of your life essence almost, to make them feel better about themselves, whether it be, like I said, a business relationship, a personal relationship. Yeah.
Chaz, is that you on harmonica in the
Uh,
song?
yeah. I do my best. I'm not John Popper,
No,
but he's
yeah.
phenomenal. I mean, all my favorite vocalists that came from the '70s era, especially, and into the '80s a bit. But I mean, Robert Plant, Roger Daltrey,
Yeah.
Steven Tyler, Mick Jagger, even going back. The blues. They all played blues harp, and I just finally I couldn't get it for a while. It was years ago. but I finally, it all of a sudden clicked one day, and I just was like, yes, and I started playing it more and more, and I thought this is the perfect song for it.
Yeah.
And like, I'm just gotta have some blues harp in there just for the hell of it, because no, I was like, this is that type song that could really stand to gain from it. So that's why I did my best.
I don't know. What a
great
great element to have the harmonica in there, and the way it works in the song.
Thank you.
I've noticed that you've been doing shows all over. You've been in Ohio, New Jersey, Las Vegas, New York, Tennessee, California, and I was bummed out. I saw that you were in Michigan, and I missed the Michigan date. And I was going to ask, are you planning on? Are you heading back to Michigan anytime soon?
I think we are, actually. I think there is a date in Michigan in October, in Saginaw, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I believe so. But yes, we are doing. We have also been Massachusetts. We've done New England. We've done Florida. We've done South Carolina. We've done since everything started up again last year. Like I said, everything started and stopped. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to Michigan's not that far away, right? So
no, I know
that too. And my hometown of Sault Ste. Marie. If you go Sault Ste. Marie to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and then I-75 down to Detroit. So maybe I'm going to try and catch you in October then.
I know, it's right there. It's, what, 2 hours or something like that, across the border.
Yeah, a few, 2 to 3 hours drive.
Oh, maybe. Exactly. I remember being on the bus after a show in Michigan, and then we were going to Toronto. So, yeah. I think we can have a Toronto show. I'll let you know.
Oh, are you coming? You're thinking about coming?
Possibly. I heard this from an agent, one of our agents the other day, that there's possibility. We got offered a date in Toronto, so we're trying to work it out with the scheduling. But yes, I will let you know. And that would be, I think it's like right before Halloween, like a few days or a week before. So
my birthday is around. I won't tell everybody when my birthday is, but it's around Halloween. So that would be a really good party to go to.
Cool. Definitely. All right. Well, then I will push to see if we can make that happen for you. Yeah. It would be that week. I believe it's like right before Halloween. So that weekend before or something like that. So,
I'm having a milestone birthday this year, Chaz. So
really? Okay. Well, you look great. It's only a number. It's only your attitude. Yeah.
Hey, listen, I got to ask this before we wind down. Is there a volume 2 album coming out?
That's what we're currently working on. And I put this is the first single from that soon to be released record, which probably won't be till probably next year. But yes, that's what we're currently working on. In fact, I'm getting together with Roy Z in a few hours, and we're working on a song. Right. And I'm also writing with Jimmy Burkard. We're writing a song together, and because I want to incorporate more of the band members into the writing situation this time, since they've been my boys, they've been my bands for now a few years now. So yeah, absolutely, there will be a volume. Whether it'll be called volume 2, I don't know. Let's see. Tentatively, the working title is volume 2. Yes.
Okay, that'll be the code name. Code name is volume 2. We'll find out later if that sticks or not.
You got it.
Chaz, I want to thank you so much for doing the show with me. I've had a lot of fun. I hope you have too. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave us with before you go? And you said you're going to go make some more great music. So if there's anything else.
Well, just please, everybody check out the single. I hope you love it. Don't Stand in My Sunshine. It's available on all digital platforms. Go to westboundofficial.com. That's our website. That'll have any shows that we're doing, tours coming up, any, the singles on there also. So, that's it. And just, we're still around, and we're going to be even out there more in the coming months and into next year. So, and I appreciate all the support and, the real love of the music. It means the most to me. So thank you from the bottom of my heart and soul.
That is the Traveler, Chaz West, who says, never surrender, as together we did the dance of life here on the Path Radio Spotlight. He is the keeper of the flame, and together we can say, don't stand in my sunshine, as we embrace the beautiful dream. There's more all about that on Chaz's social media. I'll have that information in the show notes. Thank you, Chaz. Take care. Hope to catch up with you again here in Toronto.
I promise I'll let you know, and we'll celebrate your birthday.
Right on. Take care.
Tear it up. Rock on, my friend. Cheers.